Kempton Park.
Now, as South Africa celebrates Youth Month, unemployment amongst young people remains a towering concern. Apart from the lack of job creation, unemployment is also associated with skills shortage. An industry expert is urging the youth to consider careers in the IT sector, which is struggling to find new recruits with the required skills. Mvelo Hlophe is the CEO of Zaio, an online platform that provides digital skills training. He joins me with more on his advice to South Africa's unemployed young people. Good evening to you, Mvelo. Thank you very much for making time to chat to us here on Newsnight. Now, where millions of South Africans are unemployed in our country, young people particularly are impacted. You say that young people need to search for proactive empowerment channels. Just talk to us about what you mean by that.
So thank you, Abigail, and to all your viewers as well for having me. I think what we really need to look at is the opportunities that exist within the IT space. So there's hundreds and thousands of IT roles that aren't filled annually in South Africa, and then millions more globally, and this is expected to grow over the years. So there are opportunities that are out there where institutions and companies are upskilling youth currently. So there's 12-month programs that exist where youth can be part of and get trained in IT skills. And then there are other organizations or institutions that exist outside of the traditional higher education institutions that youth usually are geared towards going to, where they can learn how to code, how to start a career in IT. And usually these qualifications take a lot shorter than the traditional institutions that we have out there. So if youth are looking to empower themselves to then take advantage of those opportunities, they may want to consider looking at these alternative institutions to actually gain those qualifications, those skills, to then pursue those opportunities.
And Mvelo, what type of skills specifically then would be required?
So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of skills that the IT sector does require. I think broadly speaking, we're looking for things like developers or individuals that will become software engineers in cybersecurity. And more recently, we're looking for AI specialists. So yes, you know, something like an AI specialist takes quite a while to get to, but starting as a software engineer or just getting your foot into the IT industry is a good way to start. And then once you're in there, there's a plethora of ways that you can then advance your career to then take advantage of the many other opportunities that exist.
So often parents will try and push their children into what is termed stability, a job where you go in, you work your 9 to 5 hours, you come back home to your family. Are people reluctant to take on what is being titled virtual employment or digital employment? And what are the conversations that scares people around these type of jobs?
I mean, of course, there's still a lot of misconceptions around these internet jobs, right? Or these virtual jobs that, as you say. And a lot of the times when we go into schools, when speaking to young people, we still hear the same career choices. You know, someone wanting to be a lawyer, someone wanting to be a doctor, an accountant. And, you know, as much as those are very noble careers to go into, and more often than not, it's the learner's parents that push them towards these careers. There are other opportunities that have now come about simply because the world has evolved. The working environment and the working world has also evolved. And as we globalize, things like IT have become more appealing for just from an opportunities perspective, but also just from a job security perspective. I think a lot more conversations really need to happen around how do we access opportunities, not just, you know, in our local economy. How do we access opportunities that are global? And because of the rise of virtual work, this is really possible because you could literally be staying anywhere in South Africa, but working for an organization in the US, in Europe, or anywhere else in the world. So those are the conversations that really need to start happening outside of just sticking to the traditional career choices that we currently see.
And Mvelo, why, in your opinion, do you think South African young people are not rushing to grab hold of these opportunities? Are there barriers to entry? What are the concerns?
Yes, again, it's related to information. I think in the past, there's certain demographics that we've seen in the IT spaces, and more often than not, we tend to then look at that and say, okay, someone like me isn't there, so I do not see myself or I can't enter there myself. Again, traditionally, you'd have to go through an institution such as a university or a higher education institution that would take a really long time. And some individuals don't have the money to be able to access those institutions. But secondly, because people spread their time across other things that life really requires from them, like building a family, and taking care of other people, they might not necessarily have the set period of time of 3 years to be able to then access higher education. So institutions such as Zaio, for example, exist where you can do your qualifications in a much shorter time frame, between 6 to 8 months, and also at almost a fraction of the cost that's out there. So those barriers are then eliminated, make it easier to be accessible for many other people in South Africa.
And Mvelo, why would you say it's important for South Africans to acquire these sort of skills? We see the world moving when it comes to technology, places like China and the skills that are being developed amongst young people there. As South Africans, are we lagging behind?
I wouldn't say we're lagging behind per se. I'd say that, there's just a very small group of people who are taking advantage of, upskilling themselves to be able to, pursue those opportunities that countries like China and the rest of the world have in abundance. I think the question really is, do we have enough talent to be able to then innovate as well as create industries within the ICT space that countries like China have already? If we can focus, a lot of our young people into moving into a talent pool that is competent, technically savvy, as well as being competitive, we'll be able to really compete with countries like China, the US, and countries within within Europe.
Just in conclusion, you've mentioned the huge opportunity that lies within this space and the number of jobs that are available. What are then the specific courses, degrees, diplomas that people should go out and pursue to be able to develop these skills and take up those positions?
Yeah, just highlighting on the opportunities themselves. By 2030, we'd have about 85 million of these opportunities globally that are available and being unfilled. So to answer your question more directly, we need people to start looking at how do they become software engineers? How do they become IT specialists? How do they become even UX, UI practitioners, to be able to just get their foot into the ICT, the door of ICT. Once they're in there, they are able to really start exploring and picking up other skills. So also doing a short boot camp within the ICT space and then pairing it with vendor certification, for example, from Microsoft or AWS, is also a good way to start, where you don't have to necessarily do a degree, but you're also doing a short course and something that is verified by a reputable institution, such as Microsoft or AWS, and then you can then be very qualified to be able to then take those advantage of those opportunities.
I see. Mvelo, thank you very much for sharing your insights and for your time. We appreciate the education. That was Mvelo Hlophe. He's the CEO of Zaio, an online platform that trains Africans in the digital skills space. Just talking to us about the thousands of opportunities that are available in the IT space and what specific skills young South Africans would need to take up those positions. As we do know, unemployment is a huge and ongoing issue in our country. But let's take a